announced towards the expenditure rationalization. One of them is the Economic Debt Exchange Program, which we have deliberated on for some time now. Now, the beginning of next year, January 2023, government has announced that all MDAs and MMDs will reduce fuel allocations by 50%, a ban on the issue of V8 or V6 or its equivalent except for cross travel. And then, of course, hiring freeze on public sector employment, which will be our topic for discussion today. The question is, are all these measures in the right direction? My panelists and I will talk about this and more. You can join in the conversation later on when the phone lines is open. My guest is here. I have here with me Mr. Ibrahim Adams Moomen. He is a Director of Operations Coalition Against the Leadership of TUC and Organized Labor. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you doing? Great. I wanted to call you Al-Haji, actually.
Well, I'll be going to Hajj hopefully next year, so it's a right
so
call.
It's in order.
It's in order, yeah.
Right. Welcome to the show. My first time meeting you.
Yes, same here. I've been here a couple of times, but this is my first time also meeting you.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about this whole hiring freeze in the public sector come next year. First of all, let me take your view on the issue.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me say a very good morning to your cherished viewers, and of course my able executives of Coalition Against the Leadership of TUC and Organized Labor, of course Adam GH. I think that it's quite unfortunate that we are where we are today, even though this forms part of the expenditure rationalization by government. Yeah. But you know, we are dealing with an economy that is already saddled with a very gruesome rate of unemployment situation in the country. We have a teeming number of youth who are churning out from our various universities and other tertiary campuses with the hope that they are going to get jobs to get themselves into employment, start life from there. And let me take you a little bit back to today. I think when government came up with the salary increment of 4% and 7%, that was last year, which brought a lot of agitation within the labor front. One of the reasons government gave, or justification government gave for such, is to ensure there will not be freeze on employment within the public sector realm. And of course, government also went ahead to make a promise that they were going to ensure 1 million Ghanaians were employed within the space of 3 years. That is from 2021, 2022, 2023. These were the justifications that they used during the negotiations period to, as it were, cow leadership of TUC and Organized Labor into submission to agree to those terms. In fact, they were back and forth in the labor front, but the TUC stood its ground that, given the fact that government had this intention to, as it were, expand the recruitment network and of course ensure there's no case of redundancy or retrenchment, we should go ahead to accept the 4% and 7%, even though it was draconian. But here we are. If all of a sudden government comes back to tell us that there's going to be a freeze, and that's worrying.
Probably it could be to circumstances unforeseen. You don't think so?
We don't think so, because you see, the leadership of TUC and Organized Labor have a duty to, at all times, when they find themselves in any engagement with the government, prioritize the the interest of their constituents, right, going into the negotiations. And of course, you know that already every year, averagely 30,000 Ghanaians exit from this work. Probably retirement, maybe death and travel and all those things. And there has to be a replacement. As we speak, government has not been clear with Organized Labor whether this particular freeze is going to be a total freeze or net freeze. Over the 17 years, 17 times that we've been to IMF, almost all the freeze on employment has been a net freeze, which means that there will be a space for replacement as and when the need arises. This one, we don't know whether it's a total freeze or a net freeze, but whichever case it is, as we speak, the day the finance minister made this declaration, having promised Ghanaians way back that there's going to be an expansion of recruitment to 1 million within the space of 3 years, only for a young up-and-coming graduate who is now undertaking his national service, hoping to be maintained after service, to hear that there's a freeze on employment for the whole period of next year. You can imagine what will happen on such a person, especially when it comes to also their dependents, because of course dependents who have taken care of their wards through the system also see some hope coming that my child will be absorbed into the mainstream employment sector, only to hear that the child is coming back to become a burden on him or herself. So these are some of the challenging situations we have.
Has there been any negotiations so far with the TUC and organized labor?
Clearly, from the outburst of the TUC boss the last time, I mean, the government hasn't engaged. Because if government had engaged them, then there would have been details on what kind of freeze we are talking about. And so for the TUC boss to make a lamentation, the fact that we don't even know whether the freeze this time is a net or total freeze, means that there hasn't been engagement. And that's also another worrying situation. Because you see, TUC and organized labor are key stakeholders in whatever decision or policies government will be churning out that has a direct impact on labor issues in the country. And so for government to come up with any direct pronouncement or policy issues, and yet there hasn't been any prior discussions or engagement with stakeholders who are representing Ghanaian workers within this realm, I think that for me is totally out of place.
You see, looking at where we find ourselves now, with everything happening, the economic crisis and all of that, don't you think it's necessary for government to put in measures like that?
I agree with government when I looked at the number of measures that they brought up, but that cannot affect issues of employment. See, my sister, you are talking about service delivery here. I give an example that averagely 5% of persons are replaced every year, which goes to close to 30-something thousand. Now, if there is going to be a policy which suggests that there is going to be a total freeze on recruitment, don't you think it's going to affect service delivery? Because then where will be the teachers that we will need to fill in the gaps when people leave? What are our nurses and doctors and other essential services? And so, until government comes out to tell us exactly what he meant by the freeze, you cannot put a freeze. If you are not recruiting new ones, there should be replacement of old ones. But you see, even with the new ones, already there's a huge backlog of unemployed graduates who are still struggling to make entry into the private sector. And don't forget, the government is already on record to have said that they've hit their ceiling in terms of how many people they can recruit into the public service. What I expected government to do was to come up with very flexible policies that will create the enabling environment for those of the young ones who would want to go into entrepreneurship. They've always been sloganerism here and there about policies that government will want to roll out to make it easier for the youth who are entrepreneurially inclined to go in there. But as we speak, you cannot pinpoint one single policy of government that makes that also possible. So even those of the youth who are into, who have the potential to go into the private sector, don't also find that area attractive because the policies there are not favorable. If today you and I want to go into private business, after school you can't make entry into the public sector. You want to start your startup, where do you take the money from? It's from the bank. Today the policy rate is 27%, giving us an interest rate of in excess of 40%. So that in itself is a killer.
But there is USTAT.
How many people have been able to access the USTAT? Because government made a declaration that as part of its measures to cushion the effect of this freeze is what you have just mentioned.
Yeah.
The last time we checked, on pilot basis, only 71 or 72 persons have benefited from it, which is woefully inadequate. Even if it's a pilot project, that cannot stand for anything like that. So government would have to, at this moment, know that there are a lot of challenges that the labor, the members of the labor front. When you look at the prices of goods and services, the way they are skyrocketing, it's unimaginable. Do you know that as I speak to you, the dollar, the cedi seems to be gaining some stability, but we expected that it will have a rippling effect on the prices,
of goods.
Today,
it's not the case.
The transport owners are telling until the fuel price hits 10 cedi, they are not moving an inch in terms of also trying to reduce the price. What it means is that the ramifications of the previous increases on the businesses of these, Ghanaians are still telling on their income, and so they expect the reduction to get to a certain level so they can have a feel of it on their income before they cannot come back to us, the consumers. So look, we are also reduced. So yes, the city may be gaining some stability, but it has not gone to a level where the Ghanaian will also have a feel of that impact of the city-dollar relationship. So whichever way you look at it, government has a duty at this moment to listen to organized labor,